Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ceres podcast. In today's episode of the Past Masters, Mark Petrou is joined by two friends of ours, Kelly Barnes and Tim Barnes from Krispies Fish and Chips in Exmouth and now Exeter. Kelly and Tim have been on the Ceres podcast numerous times, and Kelly is now a podcast host and joins us regularly on the Pod Squad episodes. And that isn't really possible without Tim's help because Kelly's not very good technologically. She won't admit it, but she can barely send a text message on her iPhone. This is an episode that covers their time entering the awards. To find out more about Kelly and Tim, go back and listen to previous episodes on the Ceres podcast. Just keep scrolling down and you'll see their name. People that know Tim and Kelly know how brilliant they are. They're always pushing their business forward and also helping others along the way. They are a proper power couple and they really do motivate each other. From my point of view, it's an absolute pleasure to work with both of them on a professional level, serving them with various bespoke Krispies products. And on a personal level, it's just as good. They're just brilliant people. Today's episode is sponsored by Ceres Curry Sauce, crafted with real herbs and spices sourced from around the globe. No flavours or essences, this curry sauce is the real deal. The Ceres Curry Sauce is designed for today's sophisticated customers, delivering a perfect harmony of sweetness and spice. We are absolutely committed to exceptional quality, using only the finest ingredients. Our Ceres Curry Sauce is naturally gluten-free, free from artificial colours, preservatives, and any other nasties really, ensuring you enjoy the true essence of our product. And guess what? A little goes a really long way. Our curry sauce is mega concentrated because a 5 kilo bag or 5 kilo box produces a whopping 41 kilograms of sauce, equating to 410 100-gram servings. Order your Ceres curry sauce today at www.ceres.shop for next day free delivery across mainland UK, or you can purchase it from your favourite wholesaler. There's really no excuse, so give it a try. To stay updated with everything we're doing at Ceres, follow us on social media and join our mailing list for direct updates to your inbox. You'll find the link in the episode show notes. Also, you can join the conversation on the Ceres podcast discussion group on Facebook. And before I finish, I just want to say a big congratulations to Martin Robinson, who was the winner of the Palette of Natural Batter Mix, which was a competition that we ran in, again, an email competition. And, he won like £1,400 worth of batter mix, which should see him through for a while. I read online the other day and he messaged me to say that he's now doing a deal for his customers because he got, this awesome competition. But the reason why it's an email-only competition is because we don't want spammers doing everyone heads in on Facebook. So go ahead, get involved, join the competitions, take part of the special offers. They're all by email only. Now, if you've enjoyed this episode, share it with your friends and colleagues in the industry. And if you really do have time, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps us get exposure with all their algorithms. We all have intentions of sharing and we just forget. So if you can, it'd be absolutely great. And be sure to comment and discuss this on the Ceres podcast discussion group. Now, let's dive into today's episode with Mark, Tim, and Kelly.
Tim and Kelly Barnes, I'm so pleased to have you here. You are the 31st winners of Fish and Chip Shop of the Year with your store Krispies in Exmouth. You started it in 2000. You won it in 2019. So 19 years, that's a heck of a journey. Before we get into Fish and Chip Shop of the Year and winning it, I want to take you both back. Right the way back to when you could look down and see your toes. We're going to go right the way back to even before you got into fish and chips. Thank you for joining me. Start at the beginning. Take as much time as you want. Tell me how you met. Tell me. I want to know everything. Tell me the whole lot. Go.
Do you want me to start, Tim? Are you?
Yeah, you go.
Yeah,
I'm sure your story is slightly different than mine.
I suppose we kind of. I'll start at the very beginning. I was my parents originally born in Burton-on-Trent in Staffordshire, and we used to holiday in my nan's caravan a lot on the east coast, Skegness, Mablethorpe, that area. So then my mum and dad then saved quite a bit of money, because coming to Devon was quite an expensive thing back in the 90s. Really, it was quite an expensive place to come, and we used to holiday at Sandy Bay for 5 years, so right the way through 92 to 97 when I met him. And we used to come on holiday, and it was like this. Devon was like this world of, for being a northerner coming down south, it was almost a little bit shiny and a little bit glitzy. Posh. Yeah, it was dead posh for a northerner. I hasten to add, we probably didn't fit in back then, but I hope I do now. And then in 97, when I was 16, we came on our final family holiday with my parents. And Tim was a bouncer in the local in the nightclub on the camp, and I was on holiday. And we could use lots of words for what the situation was, but basically it was a holiday romance that never ended. Okay. And I'm sure Tim's version of that story will be very fruitful in a minute.
Okay,
but yeah,
I'm going to dive in, Tim. I mean, physically, you have a presence. I think for people that are listeners rather than actually viewers who don't know Tim, you're a big guy, okay?
Yeah, I am.
But you, knowing you don't present as an intimidating type. You've never used your size as. How did you end up as a bouncer?
My brother used to do a couple of nights a week at the camp. He had a full-time job as an estate agent, and he needed more extra money, so he had a job there. And when I turned 18, he said that I could get you a job. I had just been to catering college for 3 years, working in catering at the weekends. And when I left catering college, I was kind of like, I'm sick of catering. I don't want to do this. I just want to get a job. So he got me a job there. His manager was sort of umming and ahhing, because I think I was maybe 17, nearly 18, wasn't quite 18. And the moment he saw me, he was like, yeah, you'll do. Yeah. It was a holiday camp. It wasn't a nightclub where you're going to get glassed and bottled and anything like that. It was it was a family holiday club, but yeah, there was a few fights from these northerners that used to come down and stay. That was it. It was I ended up doing sort of 5 nights a week. I wanted to move out of home, and my dad had this real crappy flat above a laundrette that he owns. He still owns. And I wanted to move in there with my mate, and he said, "You're not moving in unless you got a job." So that I got the first job I could get, which was that. And it turns out that it was a good thing, because I met this girl on holiday who was my one and only one-night stand, which is still going.
So it was just love at first sight. The stars aligned, and you just... Were you drunk, Kelly?
Probably a little bit.
I wasn't, so that's the amazement of it. I was working, so I wasn't drunk, and I still fell for it.
So you've got nothing to blame at all.
No.
So you two met. Tell me how you went from being a one night stand and a couple. How did you find fish and chips? Because I know that your dad was high up in Dorothy Perkins and gave that up to set up a holiday camp. down in
Yeah.
Devon,
Yeah.
and I know that financially he's been like a beacon, a sensible guiding light for you. I know you've got an amazing relationship with him. We'll unpack all of that in a while. But how did you two go from being this couple in love, carefree, living in the flat above a laundrette? How did fish and chips come along into your lives?
Well, so after we met, obviously Kelly went home at the end of her holiday, and we literally saw each other once a month for the next 6 months, I think it was. 3 months. 3 months.
Only 3.
And yeah, the first month I went to see her, then the next month she'd come down and see me. And then one day, I mean, she'll probably tell the story better, that she literally turned around to her mum and dad and said, I'm moving in with Tim. In my defence, I thought that this was a 19-year-old girl who I'd gone and told all my mates that I'd pulled an older girl. And she came down and moved in, and she gave me this story that she was going to move in, find a job, get her own place, move out. So she was, in my mind, she was just staying for a little bit. We weren't moving in together. I think that would have been too scary after 3 months. So she moved in, and long story short, my brother decides that him and his girlfriend, we should go on a holiday together. And so Kelly gave her details of her passport, gave her false birthday, and then realised that when she gets to the airport, this isn't going to work. I need to come clean. So she phones me, and at that time I'd left the camp and I'd got a job in a fish and chip shop. And she phones me and says, you need to come home, I've got something to tell you. I get home and she sat on the doorstep with her bags packed and turns around and tells me that she's only 17. Bearing in mind I was only 19 at that point, 18, 19. And I was like, is that it? I've lost a night's work for this. So everything was fine. Obviously we went on this holiday, and nobody else was surprised. My dad was like, well, I didn't think she was as old as she said she was, just by the way that she acted and the way that she was. So yeah, I was already then. I was working in the fish and chip shop. The guy who owned the chip shop had a bit of he had somebody I was there just to cover maternity leave, and so I started serving with the intention that when this girl who was frying leaves to have the baby, I would take over frying from her. And everything I do, I put my all into it. The place was a bit grotty, so once she had gone, I started cleaning the place up, making it better, making the food better. She was rubbish at cooking. I actually went to college with her on this, but she was doing more of a catering management course, and I was doing a chefing course. She was rubbish at cooking, so I made the food better. And within a few months, turnover was up. The shop was looking better. Anyway, the owner suddenly had a bit of a nervous breakdown, and he had to take some time out. And one day his brother came in to me with this briefcase and said, here's the banking stuff. I want you to run the shop. And just dumped it, really, in my lap. So I was there at 6 a.m. cutting chips and then cutting fish, and whereas the owner used to cut the chips and the fish, and all I did was come in and fry. And it was a very steep learning curve, and I needed help. And Kelly was sitting in my flat doing nothing because she was struggling to find a job. And I was like, you need to come in and help me. So she came in and she started serving. And I showed her the ropes, and it was just the two of us. She served, I fried, and it has been like that for 25 years.
That's amazing.
And
then later on, after 6 months of this guy being out, he came back, and he was in his 50s, and in the meantime, he'd met this lady who was sort of similar age to him, and she had 2 teenage children, sort of teenage going on adults, 21 and sort of, I don't know what the other one was, and came back and said, we're all back now, and we're all going to be working, and we haven't got a position for you. and made me redundant, and that was it. So that was a bit of a. You carry on.
What Tim's glossing over is we in that period of time that I think he was off for about 6 months. So we had a 3-pan range at the front. 2 of the pans didn't work, so we only had 1 to cook chips in, and then the fish got cooked in square tabletop fryers. So you could only cook 16 bits of fish in one go because you had to stack them side by side. And then you'd put it on a tray, and on a busy Friday night, that tray would be full, and you used to have to carry this tray over to the frying range and fill the hot plate. Believe me, the number of times I dropped that fucking fish on the floor. that was where we realised we needed a big, massive bit of steel between us to stop us arguing. But that kind of like what Tim's saying is what he's failing to mention is they didn't just come in and say we're taking over. They came in and accused us of stealing at that point, and they made Tim redundant because they got no evidence. And basically we wrote this kick-ass letter with Tim's parents and said, look, we've run your business, we've taken it from $2,000 a week to $6,000 a week without you here, with no guidance, just dumped on us. And I went off sick, and that's kind of like Tim was on redundancy, and I was like, I can't go in without Tim there. That, to me, just the dynamic didn't work. I mean, we ran that business like our own, didn't we? It was like we worked really, really hard.
You cash up the till at the end of the night, and the till was like £2 or £3 down, and it was missing, and nobody had told me what to do about that. So they were what you said the till says it is, and what you've banked doesn't match. And it was like you're talking like a couple of quid each day, maybe. They did do a massive U-turn and say, well, there's no evidence of you stealing, but we have no job for you. So for some reason, my dad, even though he had quite a high-powered job at Dorothy Perkins and then Burton's when they bought Dorothy Perkins out, he always said as a teenager he fancied running a fish and chip shop. So I think some of it was sort of his passion to do this thing that he's always wanted to do through us. So we started looking, and he said that I'd help you buy or help you secure a mortgage. So we found this fish and chip shop in Dawlish, which was a very seasonal, shut down in the winter. And then from April to September, 7 days a week sort of shop. But it was just in the wrong location. We bought it, then realised it was in the wrong location. It was right on a corner of a busy road with railings outside, so you couldn't stop. And just around the corner was this big coach park where there was another chip shop. So all the people that used to get off the coaches and straight into the first chip shop they saw, which wasn't ours. So we were there for a season and really, really struggling. And we've got a mortgage on this place. The only way that we could get a mortgage was that my parents had to use their house as a guarantee.
Wow.
So the only way that my parents would use their house as a guarantee was if my dad did the accounts for me to make sure that I wasn't messing it up. But we didn't make any money there. We lost money there. And at the end of that season, we decided that it's not going to work. And if we carry on staying here, we're going to go bankrupt and we need to do something else. So we started looking again. And my parents take all the credit of finding Krispies, where we'd actually seen it before we'd even bought the one in Dawlish. And they had told us that it was too big for us to run at our age. And then they came back to us and said that this shop's still on the market. Should we have a look? And we came and had a look at this shop that did these crinkle cut chips that were battered. That's the only chips they sold. Never seen anything like it because you don't get it down in Devon. And my dad was obsessed with these battered chips. And we looked around the place and we decided we're going to buy it. Which we did. The other shop hadn't sold. So I had to drag my dad out of retirement, who had never cooked anything, and train him how to cook fish and chips in about a week. He was shocking. And he went and ran the Dawlish shop. And me and Kelly took on Krispies, which was open at the time 6 days a week. So on a Sunday, the only day that we were shut here, we then used to have to go to Dawlish and cover my dad so that he could have a day off. So we worked 7 days a week, and he could have 1 day off a week.
So
luckily,
the Krispies name.
Yeah.
The Krispies name. Did you give that to your first shop, or was it actually Pines Road, Exeter Road, where you named your business Krispies?
Krispies is
Exeter,
isn't it? It's Exeter Road is where Krispies came from. The first shop was called
It was already called Krispies when we bought it, because of the battered chips. So yeah, we carried that on, but it was a very, very dated shop. It was pink and grey. The front of the range was pink and grey panels. The walls were pink and grey. The outside had pink and grey canopies, and it was.
I think I've seen photos.
Yeah. There are some photos floating around.
It had a pizza shop on the side as well, which was yellow and red. So it was kind of like, it was not any bit Italian at all.
It sounds like a fruit salad.
Yeah, it was awful.
Yeah.
If I'm allowed, Mark, just to kind of go back to Dawlish and in the beginning, I think, Dawlish was really, really tough for Tim and I. We were like 18 and 21. And it was, like Tim says, a really, really seasonal business. In winter it closed. So Tim and I would work, and this is kind of where our work ethic comes from, I think. So like we started out, we used to work 7 days a week. We'd have, for the first year, we didn't have a day off. And I know that's kind of like a lot of people did that, but you always forget how hard you've worked in this industry, I think, to get to where you are. Sure. And I always find it kind of like, we knew we had something. I remember standing in that shop in Dawlish. The day we moved in, we had the heaviest downpour I've ever had, to the point where the storm drain lifted up in the shop. It was pissing water through the door into the shop.
Like
whilst we were trying to fry. Our parents were moving us in upstairs. And as anyone who knows us will know, I don't like doing things by halves. So my dad was painting the lounge whilst the water was coming in. We were so driven to create something, and we didn't really know what we wanted, but we knew, like, the image Krispies is now the blue and white and silver. We talked about that when we were 18 years old. We looked in the Chippy Chat magazine and saw your famous face at the time. I'll tell you a story about that later, which was hilarious. Me and Tim, when we first saw you at a trade show, was hilarious.
Okay.
And
maybe we won't go there.
And I just remember, like, we talked so much about what we wanted, but we never really knew how to get there. Like, there was no kind of clear path on. We just had a dream, didn't we, Tim? Really, I think we just had this vision. Yeah. Even at that young age, we just had this vision of what we wanted.
But those 3 years at catering college must have given you the fundamentals. Actually doing a chefing course and stuff certainly must have given you a foundation and all the fundamentals you needed going.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I still use some of the things that I was taught at college. Teach my staff. The fact that if you give a member of staff a job and they think that's the only job that they've got for the day, they'll drag it out for the whole day. If it's something like, I don't know, filling the cans fridge or chopping some lettuce. I remember that I was put on veg at college, and all I had to do, there was a couple of us on veg, and all I had to do was peel and chop some carrots, and I made that whole preparation take the whole time that we had available to do the prep. And my teacher, head chef guy, came up to me, and he's after swearing at me and telling me how fucking useless I was, he was like, "You'll never get employed if you drag something out because you've got 2 hours available, and you make it last 2 hours. You're never going to get employed doing that." And I still teach that to my staff now.
That's brilliant.
When they're dragging their heels, it taught me to go in and do, even if that's all I've got, it's you get it done as quickly as you can, as efficiently as you can, and then you're like, what next, chef? And that's what he wanted, me to get into. They also taught us that in the heat of the moment, I took up a plate of food when I was on the meat section, took up a plate of food, he put his finger in it and said, "That's cold," and he literally picked up the plate and slammed it down on the table and said, "This is fucking cold. Don't serve this shit to me," and threw it back at me. And I walk away to go and get another plate. Where are you fucking walking to? um, I'm just going to go and get another one, chef. And at the end of the service, he'd come round and he literally would shake everybody's hand and say, good service, well done, better next time, whatever the comment was. And it taught me that in the heat of the moment, you might all get angry, you might all snap at each other. But at the end of the service, that's done. Yeah. Tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah.
And that, we get a lot of times where, staff are still talking about what happened last night because they're really annoyed about it. And it's like in the heat of the moment, you need to just chill out and get over it.
Yeah, I guess
people say things that they don't mean.
When your work wife is actually your actual wife as well. I mean, you two must have a mechanism where when things don't always go smoothly at work, you leave that at work and then you go home, or do you take it home, or should I just not even bloody go there?
we don't take it home. But one of the times we didn't get through the mystery shop because I think we were having a bit of an argument in the shop when the mystery shopper came in, and we didn't realise. I think that was like a couple of years before we actually got through.
I don't think we've ever told anyone.
No, we are partial to snapping a little bit. Kelly looks at me because she's around the front. We've got an island range. She looks at me with this evil look on her face.
The look.
And that then makes me then... And I can't even give her a look back because she's then like, the customers can see you. So I can't do anything. We all know
the look. We've all seen that look.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. So, tell me how you went from opening Exeter Road to discovering Fish and Chip Shop of the Year, making the decision to enter it, and your strategy, your tactics. Tell me all your journey through the competition, and from getting your hands on your first Krispies site. Obviously you built the business up. At some point you'll have had a refit. Take me through all of that. Tell me about your journey.
Yeah, I mean, we bought the shop in 2020, and in 2000, sorry, not 2020, 2000. Year 2000, and in 2005, we got to the point again that we weren't making any money. We were getting into debt every time our VAT bill came along, and we needed to do something. So the four of us, me, my mum, dad, and Kelly, sort of sat around a table and tried to decide what we were going to do. And we had three choices. We either carried on as we were and hope for the best, which wasn't the right thing to do. We smartened up the shop with a lick of paint. Bearing in mind the shop was still pink and grey 5 years later. Or we really go for it and we have a refit, we have a new range, completely changed, and do the dream that we had of how we wanted the shop to look, which then in turn meant that we had to, I think we were doing, how much were we taking? It was like $3,000 a week. We were doing we bought the shop doing £150,000 a year, whatever that is per week. And I remember sitting around the table and if we do this refit, we have to take $5,000 a week to break even, to pay for the refit, which was, I think was nearly double what we were doing. And that in itself was scary. But me and Kelly, being young and naive, were just, let's do it. Let's just take that risk. It wasn't my house on the line. It was my dad's. We had, the mortgage was in my name, in our name, in all four of us names. But my dad had to use his house to guarantee again. So we took the risk and we had the refit, and we knocked what was both shops. The pizza shop and the chip shop were always one shop, but from the outside it looked like two shops. They had a separate door, but from the back you could get into both premises. It was just a dividing wall. So we decided that we were going to knock all that down. We looked at both Dutch ranges, and and we got a shop fitter in to do us a plan and help design it, and we did that refit. And from day one, we were taking the $5,000 a week we needed to take just from having the refit.
But that,
and I always used to say that, but I always used to say that the refit drew the customers in, and then us being able to keep the quality of the food with the range, being able to cook consistently, kept the customers coming time and time again.
Yeah, and I think at this point I really want to big you up a bit, because your branding, your mission statements, just looking at your website, the things that you've always held as your fundamentals, your core values as a business, they stand up, and they've stood up to the test of time, because you're always first to promote the provenance of your raw materials, how everything is made fresh on site daily, how you're really mindful to look at the little things, the details, the quality, and making sure that the service and the quality is always tip top. And I think that's always stood you in good stead. Krispies is an amazing brand, and
I think the branding that took time. That took a long time. The fonts that Krispies is written in, I just picked one off the computer and wrote it and sort of tried, and that's what we did. But then that has evolved, I think, 3 times into 2 different. It was just the words Krispies, and then we then created a logo several years later, and then we then renewed that logo, 5 or 6 years after that. It wasn't from day one having the refit, and we had all this stuff. That's probably why it took so long for us to even start. I can't remember when we first did Chip Shop of the Year.
I think we did. I think Chip Shop of the Year kind of came along from reading. I would say probably about 2013, maybe. We tried for 8 years to win Fish and Chip Shop of the Year, so maybe earlier than that. As in, we kind of thought through the process, and we never really entered. We did the whole. Do you remember you used to get the packs and you used to get your customers to fill in your sheets? I
think we did it that way once.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So we used to do that, and we used to take things like, I used to love Chip Week. Like, they were always really cool things for us. So we kind of always had these little competition things that we just used to make up. Like, it's way before social media was a thing. We used to advertise in the local paper, and I remember doing, not long after we had the first refit, we used a lady who worked for us had breast cancer, and we used Chip Week to raise money for breast cancer care, because it was something that was close to our heart. And I'm going back, 2006, 2007, 2008, all around that time. That's kind of when we sort of started gearing up to who we are now. But like you say, those values are kind of been there from day one. Like, it's not all the food and the service for us are part of who we are.
Yeah, it's not a gimmick. It's actually it's part of your DNA. And I think that anyone who knows you sees that coming through. You really have got butter in your veins, and you really do care. I know that there's a phrase that you use called Krispies family, and you use it for your recruiting, and every member of your staff really is extended family, aren't they? Not to a point where it stops being professional, because you've learned over the years to keep that professional distance, otherwise you go mad. But you do treat your staff extremely well. You are you are matriarchal, Kelly, in the way that you manage the staff. Do you have different roles in the business? Are you Kelly more front of house, and are you Tim more prep, costing? Does one drive sales? Does the other work on costs? Do you have that, or do you both sort of play a supporting role in all of it? How does it work at the top of Krispies?
You can't go
on. So our roles are always, I suppose, they kind of fit into what we do if we were working on a day-to-day basis. So Tim is food, and I am service, and service comes with looking after the team, the training, making sure that they know what they're doing on a daily basis, making sure that they feel supported, kind of touching on different generations and working with different people and long-serving members of staff versus new members of staff. So I'm sort of rotas, making sure that the wages is on budget and all of those bits and pieces where the financial side. I'm a fish buyer. I love buying fish. I like to test the product. I like to see what we're buying and what's coming through the door. And I'm the one that kind of negotiates deals on that side. Tim's potatoes. Tim's always been potatoes and does all the finances. So we have very, very set roles, I think.
The kind of jobs that have sort of morphed into, I always fried and I do all the training of the fryers, and Kelly's always looked after the counter servers, like she says, which then sort of naturally, she's the talker, so she naturally is now sort of anything to do with HR. You need to go and speak to Kelly. I have no sympathy, and I it sort of took over 15 years ago doing all the accounts for the shop from my dad, so Kelly, that's sort of how it sort of morphed into it. It's not sort of right, this is my role and that's your role. It's kind of, we've just gone down, so now we know where the line is and who does what.
So do you think one is more feared than the other, or does it depend who do you? I mean, there must be a bit. You must know who to send in to deal with the certain person. Do you have it's weirdly enough is if anybody's got an issue, they always will go to Kelly because Kelly's the one that will help them and solve them. But also Kelly is the one that they probably fear the most, because she's the one that does the telling off. But then I'm also a little bit like, when I was a kid, my mum was always the one that told me off. Yeah.
But if she ever turned around and said, "You wait till your dad gets home," then I knew I was in trouble.
So
Kelly kind of uses that a little. Kelly uses that a little bit. If she can't solve it, she's like, "Right, we're going to have to bring Tim in now," and they're like, "Oh my god!"
So she's the carrot.
Don't know why, because they know that I'm. Yeah.
The carrot and the stick, but if neither of those work, we'll get the donkey in.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. No, I think there's always that dynamic. As you know, I work with my brother, and he won't sell you a smile, but he's actually a big softie. But all the staff fear him because he's not a conversationalist. So I deal with day-to-day stuff, and then if somebody upsets me and he can see that I'm upset, he goes straight in like a Rottweiler. Why have you upset him? So there's always a dynamic and a system that works. So coming back to the competition, you entered a few times. Did you have a strategy? What was the motivation behind it? Was it to try and up turnover? Was it to try and get some sort of credibility or recognition within your own community? What was the driving force behind entering? And did you have a strategy at the beginning, or did you develop a strategy?
Not really. We didn't have any. I think the first time we entered, it was literally, let's just see where this goes. Let's just enter and see what happens. And that's probably why we didn't ever get very far. Bearing in mind that the year we won was the first time we'd ever got past the mystery shop. It was the first time we'd ever been in the top 10. We'd only ever got to the top 20 before, which I think that's the mystery shop. So we got past the mystery shop. We never got past having got into the stage where you have
an audit.
An audit. So we for many years it was just, we were very. I don't like doing things that I didn't want to sort of tick boxes, and I wanted it to be, we won the award because this is what we do on a daily basis. Later on, it did a little bit. We went through and sort of, what can we do and how can we do things better? This is, you get the feedback, and we'd be, looking at what everybody else was doing, and it was, we need to start being MSC certified, and we need to start doing all these little things to put the tick in the box. So we did start to do that.
I think that was 2016, wasn't it? We really kind of changed, maybe even earlier than that, actually, because it's nearly so. We'd never marketed ourselves as a business at all. Everything we'd done and where we'd grown to before Fish and Chip Shop of the Year was completely authentic, word of mouth. Yeah. And we'd always really prided ourselves on that. People used to say to us, so how do you market your business? I'm like, I don't know. We don't really do anything. We just do what we do. This is who we are. And I remember I think it might have been 2015, because it's nearly 10 years since we met Ali, and we decided we were going to go into marketing. Facebook had not long come around. And I remember writing... Does anyone know someone who can make a video? Of course, I'll ensue the comments of my mucky mates. And we made this sort of like this cringy, which I think is still going around on YouTube. This little 5-minute video that we decided we're going to use for social media. I'm sure if someone digs hard enough, they'll find it. And then through her, we met Ali, who became at the time our marketing business consultant. And I think, when we met her, she used to ask us questions like, what's your budget? And me and Tim were like, I don't know, we don't have a budget. Like, what's a budget? We were just I think we were so naive. Like, I think if you ask her, and probably people who know us really well, we've completely changed as business people and how we look at our business now. We were so naive in the early days. Like, even, going back only, I would say 12 years ago, we were not the same people as we are today.
Yeah, I think it was less important then as well, wasn't it? I think social media, especially Facebook, coming along in 2006, 2007, kind of changed everything. The value of using a newspaper or sort of local advertising became, it had less reach, it had less value, and you either adapted or recognised it, or you started to miss out. But word of mouth obviously served you well for a long time, because you did things so well. Your food was so good, your service was so good, that was generating more turnover. But as Tim already alluded, you kind of stalled before your refit. And then you refitted around the time you needed to start looking at different ways of marketing your business as well. So the competition wasn't really a health check for your business. You just saw it as natural progression for you. You thought it was time that you entered to kind of
yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it for me was you wanted recognition from your peers to so that you were good. And for many years we used to feel because we never used to go to any of the chipper chat balls or anything when we first started. Even after we had the refit, we used to get invited every year to the KFE ball because we bought a KFE range, and we never ever went. And we felt very cut off down in Devon. And I remember that we got to a point where we just decided that we wanted to get more involved in the industry. So I think the very first thing we went to was a KFE ball, because that's what we'd been invited to, and then it snowballed from then. We started going to all the chipper chat and all the things, the Isle of Ely, and just getting involved in the industry, and then realising that there was this bigger thing out there than just us and our chip shop. So it's kind of it just morphed from there, and wanting to be involved.
Would you say being part of the industry was a fundamental part of your growth? It certainly helped you to
massively.
Yeah, I think
seeing what other people are doing out there, hearing their stories, the fact that everybody was so willing to share their knowledge and either. Yeah, I mean, I always used to. Every day was a learning day. Just even if we didn't use it, it was just taking a little bit of that and a little bit from them, and just putting it all together to create what we wanted to create.
Yeah. I think anyone.
And so
anyone would.
Sorry, Karen.
anyone listening would take that from this, and from other past masters podcasts, is that getting involved in the industry and as part of your journey, it does help you to move forward, doesn't it? Really does.
Yes, definitely does.
I think for us, we kind of never really believed that we were good. I know that we didn't know. So obviously, you kind of touched on earlier about how good the food is and the quality and the product and those values that we had. We didn't know that. We were just being me and Tim doing what we love doing.
Sure.
And I think that's why it kind of became this big thing. I don't think we realised what we'd created at all on any level. And I think that's why it kind of is quite special to us. Like, the whole, even being part of the industry and going into the industry is so special to us. And just learning and meeting new people was such a huge thing. And I think that helped with our growth personally and within the business as well.
Do you think that if you'd won it at the first attempt, you wouldn't have gained as much as you did from,
No, definitely not. Because every year, every year we saw it as a knockback. We would get to the top 20, and then we could announce, or even Seafish did it for us, would announce to the press that we were, the top 3 in our region or whatever it was at the time.
Let's be honest.
And all our customers used to think that we'd already won it. It was, they didn't know the difference between all the awards. They didn't know that, the whole process of, all they saw is that we were the third best or the top 3 in Devon, and that marketing just helped us grow and grow all the time. When we did get Ali, our marketing woman, and we used to sit down with her, and when we seriously said, right, we want to try and win this award if we can, we would sit down every year and look at last year's application form and go through all the questions, and all the questions like, what have you done for your local community, and all those sort of things, and try and answer them, and think, if we can't answer them, what do we need to do this year to be able to answer those same questions again next year? Which is why we then started doing charity days once a year and things like that. That was box ticking, but in turn, it did so much for our PR and marketing just by doing a charity day. That it increased our turnover. It just did so much for us. So yes, it was box ticking, but the process of ticking those boxes did so much for our business.
But that's a bit of you anyway. I think without the competition focusing it, it's something that if it appeared on your radar in a different way, you'd have gone for it anyway. Because that's very much. I mean, the listener doesn't know you're actually a serving lifeguard. For your RNLI.
For the lifeboat, yes.
Yes, the lifeboat.
I have actually given it up now.
Have you?
In the last couple of months, I've done 11 years.
11 years.
11 years.
Risked your life.
Ish, yes. It's one of those things. We never big it up. We go out on a boat. Some days it's really shit, and some days it's really nice and hot and sunny, and we can just have a jolly. But yes, I've been
I think you're
volunteering for.
You're making it a small thing just because you can still touch the bottom when you're not in the boat. But you are risking your life, and you've done that 11 years. I didn't realise you'd given it up, but it's still an amazing thing that you've done while you've been building your business and raising a family. You've put your own life on the line to save others that have got into trouble. So So charity's in. It's always been in there, and I know that Kelly, you organise charity nights for the RNLI and other local causes as well. So that's a big part of what has helped. Well, it's been part of the DNA of Krispies and has made it so popular in your own community. And I guess the reason I want to bring it up is because you're too humble to, but also I think I want to give something back to the listener, that if you do something like this in your community, don't think of it as a cost. Think of it, you're investing in your own community, in your own town, in your own village, and it pays back in other ways, because it's a really lovely thing to be able to do that, to be in a position to do that. Not that it pays back in extra sales, but it just puts a spring in your step, doesn't it, when you do something like that? It's a cool thing to do.
I think it kind of stems from, again, without sounding too cheesy, but who we are. Like, and I think probably for Tim, initially we needed something away from the business. We needed to find out who we were. I mean, like, we've kind of started the conversation with the fact that, we were really young, we were babies really, and we've lived and breathed in each other's pockets, living and working together. Everyone's like, how do you do it? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It just works. Like, this is who we are, and it's part of our DNA, so to speak. But yeah, we had to have something outside of work that we could go away and switch off. I think probably from both of our points of view, a lot of people know who we are, so we kind of get asked about the shop a lot. So sometimes you never really achieved what you wanted to achieve. Yeah. But in actual fact, like in Tim's role, he used his leadership skills when it came to Lifeboat, naturally. But actually for Tim, I think, I'm speaking on behalf of him, but I think when he went to Lifeboat, it was actually nice for him not to have that leadership role and to just be part of a team that he wasn't responsible for. And I think, for me, joining the girls and raising money for the Lifeboat was just kind of like, oh, Tim's doing something, and I wanted to support him. I don't know if he just got sick of me following him around everywhere I went. I'm like, hi. But yeah, and Tim stepped back a few months ago, and I made a conscious decision that actually, if Tim wasn't part of the Lifeboat, then maybe my time had come to an end. I've now signed up for my son's rugby junior secretary, doing something else. But I enjoy doing something that's not focused on, on our everyday role and being responsible in a different way. No.
Yeah. So the competition started off the way it did, and then it ended up being obsessive to a point where you had to bloody win. The year you won, did you do anything different, or did you just persevere until you just wasn't doing anything wrong? Do you think? I know the competition changed. That instead of you going up against the only people in your area, you were just pitched against somebody. That it was kind of drawn lots. So once you'd made the last 20, it wasn't a regional thing anymore. You could have been up against somebody in Scotland or somebody, and I think you ended up against somebody in Wales, didn't you? In the
yes,
one.
Yes. That year was. And we consciously said to each other that we have done everything we possibly can. This is us, and if they don't like that, they can lump it.
Really?
This is us. We are not doing any more. We feel that we're at our best. We feel we're not jumping through any more hoops. This is us, and if that isn't good enough, then so be it. And I think if we hadn't have got through that year, we probably would have knocked it on the head, maybe. I think cause as it was the first time into the top 10, we probably would have, and we stumbled at the final block, we probably would have thought, well, we got to the top 10, that's further than we've ever got, let's do it one more time. But at the time, we were like, this is our last time, we're not doing it again. And if they don't, we can't do any more. But we felt so relaxed that we couldn't possibly do any more. This was our absolute best.
Our presentation it's so me and Tim. Like, I've got videos of where we recorded ourselves practicing our presentation.
They still exist.
Yeah, and I shit you not. There's a glass of prosecco and a glass of Southern Comfort on the side. I'm like, how we ever thought we could practice a presentation with a glass of fizz, I will never know. but we tried, and we spent months. I think we spent 4 months. As soon as we knew we got through,
Yeah.
We then sat down and we focused and we spoke to Ali and we were like, right, okay, well, we need to look at our presentation, and we wrote it. So don't get me wrong, she helped us kind of polish the edges, but it was all mine and Tim's work. And we sat and we talked and we crossed out and we added and we crossed out and we added, and we were
10
like,
minutes isn't long, is it?
Oh no, not at all, not at all. And
Feels
I think
a lifetime though.
Oh yeah, I think there was 7 different versions of our presentation still on our laptops that we were just like. And then the one bit of advice that Ali said to me, she was like, "You need to shut up when Tim's talking."
Yeah,
And how many
Kelly
times-
would. We were trying to do it so that we wanted to be able to speak without papers in our hands and present it, and it not sound robotic or. But then we also had to then be very, very careful that Kelly didn't waffle, because she tends to waffle on. And when she's waffling on, she's not actually really saying anything. She's just talking crap. So it was very hard to control that. She needed to have pointers and bullet points, which is what we actually put onto the presentation slides.
Yeah.
It was all bullet point, and then all we had to do was go down and elaborate on each bullet point. So we try to keep it as simple as possible and make it feel like it was us talking. I think, and we rehearsed so much because we didn't want it to be sort of, you stood there and just robotically reading it out. And I do think that presentation is one thing that is really, really missing from the awards now. Yeah. I don't think you can get across from a video recorded thing. It needs to be a live thing in front of it. They should bring that back. That's the only thing I think they should do.
I think you're qualified to make that comment as well, because you've been in the room and one of you has actually judged the video side of things as well. So, I think that's a fair and valid assessment to make. I think that's it has changed for various reasons, and I'm completely with you on that. I like the idea of being put in front of a judging panel, because it is intimidating, and I think you've got to prove yourself, and you can't do that via a video link. But
no. I think there's a lot of people, talking about sort of future awards and things. I think a lot of people that get to the top 10 still, they forget that it's, yes, it is about fish and chips and it's about what they're doing. But at the end of the day, the people that are running it, which is now the NFFF, it was the same when it was Seafish. They're looking for somebody to be an ambassador of the industry. And if you're in there or on a video talking and it's very monotone, very mundane, they're not getting that picture of whether you could represent the industry.
Sure. And
they need to remember that yes, they want to cover pointers and see that you're doing certain things in your business, but they are looking for that ambassador, and you need to come across in the interview, in the video, in the whatever it is that next year's will be, to show that you can be that ambassador.
Yeah, it's a huge responsibility when all the spotlights turn on you to make sure that you're a safe pair of hands and that you get the right messages across. And I think entering the award for what you can take away from it is only part of the story. You have to enter the award for what you can bring to it as well. And certainly for when you win it, there's a requirement to pay something back for actually being a winner. You need to give something back to the industry. And I think you did that in spades when you won. So tell me what happened when they called your name out. When you went to the awards day, I bet nobody spoke to you. I bet you felt like the loneliest people there, because I certainly did. And nobody wanted to speak to me, and I thought, wow, I thought yesterday went quite well.
Yeah,
you know,
you'll be looking around the room, sort of. Yeah, they were in the room, and you can just see that they're not looking at you, and you in your mind you're like, is that because they don't want to let on that you've been good, or they don't want to look at you because you've been bad? Your mind just plays games on with you. But yeah, I mean, we loved it, didn't we?
Yeah, we so the day we did our presentation, kind of the day before, I just remember that Tim and I, when I remember going to see, we went and had a cup of tea with Fred afterwards. Fred Capel was a very, very dear friend of ours, and I absolutely adore that man so much.
Who doesn't?
I know, he's just so lovely. He's just always there, and he's always just so supportive, and just, I just love. He's the sort of person that I just hang on every word. I'm waiting to see what he's got to say. But we went and had a cup of tea with him afterwards, and he kind of says like, how's it going? How did it go? And he pauses, doesn't he, when he speaks? And I'm like, oh. And we just felt, as Tim said, we'd done everything we could. We couldn't do any more. And I remember we went out for dinner with our parents and Tim's parents. And then we, the next day, woke up, went for breakfast, felt very nervous, didn't eat anything, didn't eat throughout the ceremony. Why they have the bloody wars after dinner, I'll never know, because I was famished afterwards. Didn't drink, sat there sipping water and chewing gum. Yeah. It was the most nerve-wracking experience. Our parents came along for the first time, both sets of parents. Our manager at the time was there as well. And yeah, we just sat and we, without sounding horrible, you kind of like, next, like you just want it to be over. You don't want it to be over, but you just want it to be over because you're like, if we're a winner, fantastic, great. What will come. And if we're not, then let's just get out of here because I can't cope anymore.
Did you have somebody that you feared would, if you were going to lose, you were going to lose it to them? And did their name get called out when they called out third and second? Did you think, well, we've either won it or we've totally fucking blown it? Sorry, I swore. Shouldn't have.
I don't know. Like, do you know what? I think, again, without sounding really cheesy, I don't think Tim and I, we never really were worried about competition. And I don't mean that in a big-headed way. I mean that in a,
focusing on what you were doing.
Yeah, if it wasn't our time, that goes back to the values of our business. Like when a shop opens up down the road, yes, you check out your competition, you focus on your competition, you see what they're doing. But if you spend all your time looking at the competition, you're going to be losing your focus of why you're there in the first place. Yeah. And actually, it was about us achieving what we wanted to achieve. So sitting there and listening to those names, and I remember, I can't even remember who was second and third. Can you, Tim? That's how bad my memory is so far.
I know the Crispy Cod were there.
Crispy Cod were top three, I think. And obviously Crispy Cod and Krispies. I think Crispy Cod was second, maybe, or third. And they were, and that little bit came out, and I just remember them calling our name from my point of view, and just looking at Tim and not quite believing that we'd managed to achieve that. It will live with me forever. That experience makes me quite emotional. And Leslie Graves was the first person to come over to me, and she said, "I told you, kid, I knew you'd do it." And she's just a diamond. Like, I adore her as well. Yeah.
She's a very nice lady.
And going up on stage, and Tim was like, "For God's sake!" And there's a cracking pit.
Yeah, I'm stood at the stage waiting for her to come through the audience.
I was talking all the way up to the stage. People kept stopping me, and I was yapping. And I remember, like, I think it was, I don't know who was the host that year, and he said, he was like, do a speech. I was like, for God's sake, like, I hadn't prepared anything. And there's a cracking picture of me holding the trophy above my head with the biggest grin. And Tim's like looking at me as if to say, what the fuck are you doing? Like, all our mates sent us cards, and that was the picture on the front of the card, because it's classic Tim and Kelly. Like, yeah. I'm like 100 miles an hour, and Tim's like, just shut the fuck up, like, get on with it, like, what are you doing? It was just hilarious. And I just think for us, winning was just like this. It was never like, okay, we're done, that's it, that's it, that's the icing on the cake, thank you very much, we're finished. It was always just a big thing in our career that we wanted to achieve, this huge thing that we wanted to achieve. And I don't really.
We didn't want it to be the end game. It wasn't going to be the pinnacle of our career. We were already in our career. It was just a mark of how well we've done. It wasn't. We hadn't spent our lives working towards this end goal.
It's like,
although the year after our winning year, it then did feel a bit like, what next?
Yeah. So winning it is like when you get to a level on a game, and then you can start the next level, and you don't have to go back from where you were. You've got it. You've actually got it. Nobody can take it away from you. Now that's one chapter shut. Now the real work begins. Now, kids, COVID happened not long after you.
Yeah. So we were so lucky, really, in hindsight, because
before we go,
the year after us, we went to London, handed back the trophy, and the crispy, was it the crispy cod? No, what's his name?
Miller's
Cod Scallops.
Oh, Cod Scallops.
The people that won after us.
Was it not?
Yeah, this is how. No, Miller's were the year before us.
The year before, okay.
Yeah. We handed it over, and John Molnar won that year, and he then was shut down 3 months after he won.
Yeah.
So we were so lucky.
I do want to get into that, but I want to talk more about what happened to you when you won actually at the day, because I think it's a really wonderful part of your story that I don't want to skip. So sorry, I'm going to pull you back before we talk about COVID. Once you'd won and you'd been on stage and you got given the trophy, it just becomes a circus, doesn't it? Did you guys do this morning? Did you do this morning?
Yes.
So tell me about what actually the circus that happened. What did it do to your turnover? Did you dash back to Devon after you did the TV? I mean, Seafish was still running it then. They managed a lot of the PR. The moment you won, did you get whisked away from your friends and family? What happened?
Yeah, you get whisked away straight away. Kelly, you're on mute, by the way.
Thanks. Makes a change.
you get whisked away straight away for photos, and it is just the most bizarre thing, because you've got hundreds of people just stood there looking at you while we were in a corner having to dress up with weird signs and put chips in each other's mouths whilst they take photos, and it was all a bit strange. And we said, our manager was there, and I think I turned around to him and said, "You need to get back in your car and get home straight away." And he did. He drove straight back so that he could be here for the first day of opening the next day. I don't know if you want to say.
Well, I think we kind of we got whisked off into this green room. It wasn't a green room. We got whisked off into this room, and we were just sat there like, what the fuck? Like, what, with this trophy in front of us? Like, what is going on? Like, absolutely bizarre. And the adrenaline, then you just kind of we were both a bit shaky and a bit kind of like crazy, and we did radio interviews, and I remember this girl coming up to us and sticking a microphone in my face and a big light, and she was off social media, she was some food blogger, and you're kind of like talking at 100 miles an hour, and obviously all this is going out on social media while you're still kind of in this cocoon of a big hotel drinks reception, because everyone wants to talk to you afterwards. You kind of, friends and family are there, but you kind of don't get a chance to speak to them. And it was just all a bit mad and a bit crazy, and
you were
kind
hungry.
I was bloody starving.
And you'd probably had a little drink as well, hadn't you?
Yeah, I'd had a glass of Prosecco about that time. And we had such a really, even the afternoon, before you know it, it was 7:30, 8 o'clock. You go from winning at 2 to 8 o'clock in the evening. And me and Tim were like, right, we need dinner. We need to go out, because I knew we'd been briefed. We got a really early start. We had to be up at 7:30, and we had to meet people coming to pick us up in cars, which was really funny for me. I just find all that really funny. Someone was coming to pick us up to take us to the studio, and Tim and I went out for dinner with Miller's. So Leslie, David, and Nick.
Lovely people.
And oh my God, they're I adore that family so much.
They genuinely are the loveliest people.
And we went with Daniel and his wife from Linebury as well. So it was just us, and we went for dinner. And you know what? Our parents are really quite gracious in the fact that they came and watched us achieve something. And I think they were both sets of parents were extremely proud, but they didn't kind of be like, they didn't demand our attention.
They just
and they didn't
melted into the background.
Yeah, and that was really nice. That's a real nice thing for me and Tim, is for them to be able to witness that, but at the same time, they kind of understood the brief and understood what we had to do.
Yeah.
And then I think the whirlwind really started. So Tim and I made a conscious decision to drive to London and drive home. So we had 4 hours on our way home after winning the next morning, after we'd been on this morning. So we went to this morning, we'd met Ruth and Eamon.
Yeah, I was gutted this morning. It wasn't Holly, it was
No.
Ruth and Eamon. Yeah, we had to cook fish and chips in a van at this morning, which was really bizarre. And we were sat in the green room and met Phil Vickery, and a few other people came in.
Bros were there as well. Do you remember Bros?
I remember.
Yeah, Bros were there. Oh my God.
Yeah, I remember.
And then, so you sat in this green room, absolutely, bricking it, thinking, once I can't answer the questions, once if I stumble, all this stuff going through your head. And then he took us out to this chip van, and I got behind the fryers, and I was like, I feel comfortable now.
This is
you started frying fish and chips, and then Eamon and Ruth came over and had a chat to us, and but because I was behind a frying range, I just felt at home, which was really weird. It was nice and relaxed. And then, then we had to, like Kelly said, we went back to the hotel where everybody had gone, get our stuff, and then start the drive home, which was actually really nice, because we had a good 3-4 hours in the car on our own just to absorb it and talk about what the fuck had just happened.
When we got home, I think we got home about 4:30 in the afternoon, and it was a Friday, obviously. Awards were on a Thursday. We got home on a Friday night, and we went home, we got changed, and we went straight out. My friends looked after our kids. I said hello to our kids, didn't we, babe? We both saw our babies for about half an hour, gave them a kiss and a cuddle. I don't think I saw them again for 12 months. And that's kind of how it was. And we went and worked that night, and we worked till really late. And then I think that night we had drinks at the shop with everybody. I think after hours we had some Prosecco in the office. It's like 15 of us in this little tiny office upstairs.
Lovely.
And we sat and we had some drinks and we celebrated and we talked, and really what we kind of do on a monthly basis that we still did then, what we're doing now, is we talked to them, and we made sure that they understood the brief of what we just achieved. And the one message that we said to them, which we still say now, is you're only good as the last portion of fish and chips that went out the door. Yeah. Do not believe your own hype. Yes, we've won this award. Yes, this is amazing. But now the hard work begins.
Yeah, well, you've always recognised your team's contribution. You've never made it, that you two just did this. You've always recognised.
We couldn't do it without them. So,
and it's good that you shared that moment with them as well. So you had a great year. Turnover must have been buoyant. I know that you're up to 3 shops, but COVID happened, and you'd already given the trophy back when that happened. There's a lot of adapting and adjusting and recalibrating to do, but you guys did something that at the time really showed the way for other shops on how to deal with that. And you actually opened the first click and collect only store, didn't you? As your second shop.
Yeah.
Was that to take pressure off your first site? Talk me through it, because I remember at the time I thought that's another brave step, and it was quite near to your first shop as well. But you were click and collect only, and it really worked so well as well, didn't it? Can you just?
Yeah, I mean, during our winning year, I've always been looking for other shops. I've always looked for it. But during our winning year, we were talking about doing deliveries and how we would possibly be able to do that. And one of the options was that we were going to put a frying range out in our back room where we cut our chips, which is quite a big room, and have a second kitchen, and maybe find somewhere else to cut chips. Because we don't really get good service with for having prep chips down here. There isn't really anybody that does it enough, and not going into all that. But so we wanted to carry on cutting our own chips, but we thought, maybe we could get like a lock-up unit to cut chips in. Yeah. So when we were actually looking around, this shop that we had that we've got now had been on the market for a long time. And when we actually looked into it, the rent was so cheap, and they wanted next to nothing because it was so run down. And it's a tiny, tiny little shop that we thought that, it was actually cheaper than renting a lockup to cut our chips in. So then the thought was, well, what happens if we just get this shop to do deliveries out of? And we started, we knew we wanted to do the deliveries ourselves. We knew that we didn't want to go on, we didn't have Just Eat or Deliveroo or any of those in Exmouth. The only shops that were on Just Eat were still doing the deliveries themselves, because they didn't have any delivery network here. And it was all your kebab shops and Chineses that were on Just Eat. That was all. So we knew we wanted to do it ourselves. We didn't want to be on their platform. We wanted to have our own customers. Sorry. So we decided to go with, Pre-A-Day, who were fantastic. We loved the way at the time that it was controllable, that you could control the amount of slots. And that seems normal nowadays. But back then, that was a gimmick that nobody really had. All the other platforms didn't have. Even if you were on Just Eat, what was stopping 20 orders coming out at 6 o'clock and then having nothing for the rest of the night? How did you then manage those 20 orders? How did you deliver them all in one go? Yeah. So having the control of slots and limiting how many orders you had per slot was a massive thing for us. So we went through the whole process, and we bought the shop, and we were refurbishing it and turning it into we decided we were going to do a click and collect and delivery only shop. We didn't want walk-in customers, because if we allowed walk-in customers, surely that was going to take customers away from our original shop. Yeah. This shop is literally a mile away. It's up in a housing estate in the same town. And we just we were very conscious that there was no point. We wanted to add customers. We didn't want to just take the customers away from the other shop. Yeah. We opened that shop in December of 2019. And it worked from day one. It worked great. We were, taking decent money. It hadn't affected any turnover from our original shop. We had 3 cars on the road. And then, of course, COVID hit. And we shut for 2 weeks. The day we were adamant we weren't going to shut. And then there was Mother's Day, and it was a hot Mother's Day, and at our original shop. And we had a queue out the door, and we were all starting getting a bit funny about people weren't social distancing, and they weren't listening to the advice that the government were giving. And we'd put a barrier in front of the counter so people couldn't get so close to the counter, and people were just moving the barrier out of the way and walking up to the counter. And it was people were just oblivious to what was going on. That was the Sunday. And then on the Monday morning, I think McDonald's, it was either the Sunday night or the Monday morning that McDonald's then announced that they were shutting. Yeah. And we were like, well, if McDonald's are shutting, this is serious. And, if they don't feel they can do it safely, then surely we can't do it safely. Because if anybody had come up with a plan, they would have come up with a plan. Yeah. And then on the Monday, the government shut us down anyway.
On that Mothering Sunday, sorry to interrupt, I think if you remember, Tim, me, you, Stelios, Carolyn and Fred Capel. So we were I think we FaceTimed at like 11 o'clock at night. And I that was my first time in ever owning the business that I felt uncomfortable in my own shop. And I remember coming home. I'd done like a 9-5 that day, and I came home at 5 o'clock, and I felt so uncomfortable leaving my business open for my team, and I felt really guilty going home at 5 and leaving them to deal with those customers. And I remember sitting in the bath and just crying, because I felt like something wasn't right, and I felt like we shouldn't be open. It all felt very scary. And I remember speaking to Fred, and we I think between the two of us, we both decided we were going to close. I think we were kind of like, well, if McDonald's are doing it, and Fred was like, I think we're going to close, and I was like, well, this guy's got a wealth of experience and knowledge. Like we look up to Fred a lot, and we have those conversations, and we were like, yeah, this is the right thing to do. And like Tim said, we went in that morning with the team, didn't we? And we announced to the team that we were going to close. And I just remember packing this business up, and I was like, I was so emotional. It was, as I'm sure a lot of people were. And like, we just had a delivery of potatoes on the Friday, and it was like, I felt like I was packing down my life and getting rid of something that we'd achieved.
Yeah.
It was really weird.
So it was very scary, because we shut for 2 weeks. At the time we'd shut indefinitely, and we're sat, bearing in mind that we'd had a refit at our main shop the year before, and we didn't pay for it outright. We borrowed all the money for the refit. We borrowed all the money for the range, and we then had done the same again on this new shop. That we'd borrowed all the money on the refit and all the money on the range. And we worked out that we needed £11,000 a month to stay closed, even with all the furlough and everything. And how the hell are we going to stay afloat? I had a lot of sleepless nights. Kelly did a lot of sunbathing because it was red hot. I had a lot of sleepless nights, kind of keeping it to myself a little bit of how are we going to do this? And at the time, my daughter, my son, and we had a girl that was living with us who was my daughter's friend from primary school. She was having issues with her parents, and she was actually living with us full time, and she also worked for us. And we were like, we could open, we could do all the deliveries from our main shop, we could bring the tech down from our other shop, set it up in our main shop, we could have the doors shut, and the 5 of us could work in the shop, who are all from the same household. Luckily, Kelly and my daughter are servers. This other girl and my son helped. My son was washing up, and this other girl prized with me. And we were like, it'd be perfect. And all the drivers could just wait outside in their cars. Yeah. So all our staff turned into drivers, and we made sure they all had business insurance, which probably isn't the right thing. But, the police were happy with it, because they stopped a few of them asking them, what are you doing driving around? Because at the time, you weren't meant to be going anywhere.
Yeah. Key workers.
And and it worked great. And they literally sat outside, and we would, on a Sunday night, and we only did, I think we did 4 deliveries every 15 minutes. And we made a massive thing on Facebook about releasing the slots on a Sunday night. So every day I would close it off so that nobody could book ahead. Then on a Sunday night, we would, because we didn't know what was happening week to week, so we didn't want to keep it open and people be booking weeks in advance when we didn't know what was going to happen. We may have had to have shut down completely. So on a Sunday night, we would open the slots up, and then before we went to bed on Sunday night, those slots were completely sold out for the whole week. Four a day.
You knew how many fish you were going to be selling, how many sausages you were going to be selling.
We could then print out a stock list, what we needed.
Well, actually, our friend so our friend does coding and stuff, and he created a spreadsheet that pulled the information from pre-a-day to give us exactly what we needed to get out for each day.
Banging.
Yeah.
What a nice
and we were only doing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I think. 4 days.
Yeah, Thursday to Sunday. Yeah, it's best time of my life. 4 days a week.
and that gave you just about the just to
Yeah, it gave us that and a little bit more, and it was it was great. It was just it worked. It
Brilliant.
really did work, and it kept us afloat. Otherwise, we might not have been here.
Yeah, well, it actually inspired a lot of people, me included. I locked my front door, but started doing a click and collect only service to keep people safe, keep my staff safe. We adapted our menu so that we could work in specific areas of the shop and not pass each other, so there was no overlap. And you doing that actually was probably further reaching than you realised, because it was well promoted within the trade that you'd opened this.
We had a lot of conversations with different people. We starting with Fred, we explained to him how we were doing it, because he saw the success we were having with it, and I think he started that way, using taxis as delivery drivers, and then we spoke to Harbour Lights in Falmouth, and lots of people were phoning us up and asking us how we were doing it and how to set up the app, because we were lucky because it was all up and running. The app was up and running, and I think Nick Hucker had to work tirelessly to get so many people onboarded.
He did. He's another great guy, isn't he? Owner of Quick Serve Pre-Day.
And it worked really well. And eventually we slowly started to add click and collect, as I think sort of 6 weeks later. We reduced down the deliveries a little bit and added click and collect in, because people started to want to come to the shop. But it was all, a table in front of the doorway. They weren't allowed inside the shop. And we just slowly did it like that.
Yeah. So, you were already doing industry work. You were you'd been on the board at the NFFF. Kelly, I know you've done work with women in fish and chips, and you by this stage, your profile in the industry, everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows about Krispies, the quality of the food, the branding, and your new click and collect shop. As we come out of COVID, I know you opened a third shop in Exeter, which was always on the radar for you. It was always part of your big plan. But I've seen you both change personally around this time as well. In that you've taken a bit of time for yourself for personal growth and personal development. I know that taking time for your own mental health and changing your own personal goals. You make me sick. You both look so well. You've actually afforded yourself a holiday every now and again. You've done a triathlon, haven't you, Kelly?
Yes, I did a triathlon in April. It was only a mini one, but I did it.
Are you climbing a mountain in a couple of weeks' time, Tim? Tell me.
In a couple of days' time.
You're going up Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, I fly to Kilimanjaro on Saturday. Saturday into Sunday, because it's a long flight. And then Monday morning I will be taken to the mountain and spending 7 days camping on the mountain and climbing it.
Yeah, look out for little Scotsman
hopefully
going up, won't you?
Yeah, he is there now. And what day is it today? Thursday. So I think he's going to be summiting tomorrow morning.
It might take him a bit longer because your legs are 3 times as long as his. You'll be up and down before he's even halfway down. What was the shift? Was it COVID and how that affected everybody mentally that inspired you to reevaluate, to reassess? Because not only did you come out of COVID, but with this with the personal challenges that you wanted to make, the changes that you wanted to make, but you opened another shop as well. So and you've also already mentioned you've got 2 kids, which I failed to mention. You've got 2 lovely kids. You spin a lot of plates, you guys. What was the motivation behind that? Is it just as you've got older, you've afforded yourself this, or was it COVID that did that? And what's happening next? Too many questions, I feel, but I just want to know. I'm keen to know.
I mean, opening more shops has always been our dream. We always had a sort of a figure of 5 maybe in our heads, and I always remember somebody telling me that having 2 or 3 is really, really hard work. And I always felt that our click and collect shop was never truly our second shop. Yeah. I feel like that was like our 1.5. It was like the same shop. All the prep was done in one shop and transported to the other. And it was like having a massive shop with 2 counters. It is just an extension of our Exmouth shop, our second one. But we went into it thinking, we've got 2 shops and it's easy. It's piece of piss. We can open a third. And we opened our third, and I think that's a true second shop. And it has been tough. It has been really tough.
Energy prices were high at the time, weren't they?
Yeah, we opened, bang, my electricity bill for the new shop was about £3,500 a month. Wow. Which was really stressful because we weren't making enough money to pay all those bills. So it was sucking a bit of money out of our original shops. It was the wrong time. The shop itself is doing great, and it's got good turnover. We're building good relationships over there, but it's another 20 staff, which is a massive headache for Kelly and me because her headaches seem to pass on to me. It's just there's nothing that sort of. It's not that shop that's a pain. It's just the extra staff, the extra things to think about. It's just more stuff to control, and that is the headache. And I think it's just it, and that on top of the financial burden. Again, we borrowed all the money to do it, and it's been hard. The cost of living, the first 12 months was really, really hard. Because just energy just was rubbish. Yeah, I think that's now coming down.
I think you both used to working on the coalface on the front line as well, and until you get to a certain number of shops, it's going to be really hard for you to step away from that. But there will come a point where you'll be able to afford to put another layer in. But I don't know if you're ready to step away from the coalface or not. I certainly was.
It's really weird. It's really weird because there are times where Tim and I get to do, I would say, an office job now is what most what it's really weird because that's not work to me. Sitting behind a desk from 9 to 5 is not work. I'm a little bit emotional about this kind of chat. We'll get to that in a minute. That's not really work for me. Work is being behind the counter serving customers. That's where our focus is. So I think every now and again our business requires us to go back to the shop floor to just remind ourselves why we're doing what we're doing, and B, to remind our team that we're still there, because it's almost
and your customers, they like to see you as well, don't they?
Absolutely. And so I remember reading this business analogy that our 3 shops are like children. So we've got Exeter Road that's the teenager and that's kind of growing and throws its toys out the pram every now and again, but needs that little bit of work. You've got Pines Road that's the toddler and is in its infancy. So it's like, it's 4 years old, and we all know 4-year-olds are great because they're growing. And then we've got a baby that's 2. And the baby requires a lot of work and has caused a lot of headaches because you're having sleepless nights. And it is literally like having 3 more kids. And that analogy's really stuck with me. But obviously you have your 3rd child and all your focus is on that. So the child number 1 starts to go off the rails. Yeah. So you kind of then have to refocus. And that's how we've had to juggle. So there's 2 of us and then there's 3 kids. And we're like, oh my God. Yeah. And it's been really, really tough. Like Tim says, I don't think it's the businesses that have been tough. I think it's that we've grown. We've grown into a staff of 75, and until very, very recently, I was managing that on my own. Really, Tim was there supporting, obviously, but I was managing that on my own, and Tim actually said to me, we need to get help. And I think kind of touching on why we're doing what we're doing personally is because if I didn't, I think I would have gone crazy. It's been really, really difficult, I would say, these last 2 years having the third business, and that's purely because I'm one person and I like to know everything about everybody. And I will openly admit there's a couple of members of my team that I haven't met but I've chatted to. They're drivers, but all my full-time members of staff and all my part-time staff, I know who they are, and I like to know at least one thing about them so that I can relate to them and have a conversation with them. I don't want to be just this face behind a desk or this name on a bit of paper, because otherwise I think we lose the essence of what we've created.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think with regards to sort of Exeter, it's been a very, very tough learning curve. A very tough learning curve.
Yeah, I understand that. I get that. So what's next?
And I'm not sure whether we'll eventually get to the 5 or not. It's hard because I feel like we're at the end of our knowledge. We're at the end of we're trying to learn how to have 3 shops and how to get to the next step of, we've done this all the way through. I knew how to cook, but I didn't know how to run a business, and I've learned how to run a business, and now I need to learn how to run 3 businesses and how you go from how to get a bit more corporate.
I'm not going to sugarcoat this because I like you both so much, but until you're ready to let go of the apron strings, I think you care so much, but your branding and your food offer and everything you do is so good that it's scalable. Somebody like a venture capitalist would come along and make you an offer for your brand and actually roll it out across the country, but you're not. I don't think you're ready to let go of that. I think there could be a Krispies.
If the offer's good enough.
Yeah, well, that's why I won't sugarcoat it. But I do. I don't say that to everyone, but I do. I love the simplicity of your menu, the spirit, the ethics behind what you do and how you do it, and I think that your branding is so good. Everything. It's 5 years after winning Fish and Chip Shop of the Year, you're actually better than you were when you won Fish and Chip Shop of the Year, and that speaks volumes. And I think it is scalable because you've already demonstrated that. Somebody like Giraffe, it started off as just one store. And somebody put money behind it and grew it. And Pizza Express was exactly the same. And Fred can tell you a lot about Pizza Express because he's got a very good friend who made Pizza Express everything that it is. But I think Krispies could go the same way. Whether you two stick at 3, get to a point where actually I'm ready to sit on the beach now. I do think I think that your dream could be letting somebody else take it to the next level, and giving you a big check. But I don't think you're there yet. That's just me. That's just me being
nearly.
I think we have days like that. I think like you say, probably the last 2 years, maybe 4 years since COVID, we have days like that. And I think COVID was probably the first time, as it was for everybody, the first time we switched off, the first time that we'd sat round a table for dinner with our children on a regular basis. And I think that kind of made us refocus on who we were as people. And, kind of going back to winning Fish and Chip Shop of the Year and going, like, we sent our team to Japan. Everyone was like, what? You're not going yourself? And I'm like, well, no, because I've got 2 kids. Like, my kids were really important. The kids were like our main focus. The shop and the business was who we were, and so were the kids. And I couldn't envisage. I'd already left them a lot throughout that year of winning, so leaving them again to go and cook fish and chips in Japan and giving someone else the opportunity within my shop to do that was amazing for us. But I think it changed. The last 4 years has changed us personally because it's made us look at who we are within our business. we'd never ever put ourselves first, ever. And I know that, you know, again, it might sound really cheesy, business first and all of that, but there are, you know, we missed out on a lot of parenting with our children. We were amazingly lucky to have this great support network of family. But our kids got shipped off every summer for 4 weeks. They came back in time to choose school uniform. And then every weekend, Tim's parents would have our children. We never taught our kids to ride bikes. We never taught our kids to swim. Some days I regret those choices, and I think Tim does too. But there are other days where our children are very lucky, and to have who we are now. You know, we're in our 40s. We had our kids young. We're still young, and I think our kids really admire who we are as adults. And I love having that relationship with them now. Yeah, we're very lucky.
My eldest has just moved to Bristol, and it's broken me in half. Honestly, I'm really fearful of having an empty nest. I've got the youngest one here, but she's locked in her bedroom. I won't let her leave. But you know, there is time that you don't get back, and I admire you both for
just wait until she comes back, Mark. Then you realise how nice it's been. My daughter comes back from uni, which she is in a few days' time, and it's like a whirlwind for a few weeks. And then I'm like, so I'm glad she's going back.
Tripping over shoes again, and
yeah.
Brilliant. So, I'm not done with you yet. We're getting there. We are getting there. There must be people to thank along the way, and I know your parents play a big part in that. And I want to give you both the opportunity to recognise people that have had, you know, made an influence along the way, and then I want you to put a bow on the whole thing by giving advice to others that might be thinking about entering or might be at various stages in their fish and chip journey. Any advice? I mean, you know, don't eat yellow snow is, you know, we all know that one, but you know, there must be some advice that you can give from your years of doing what you're doing. So
God, I feel like I'm writing the obituary. You're ready for me to go. Okay, I think when it comes to people who've been supportive, like you say, our parents have always been there from day one, like day dot, you know, whether they agree. I think probably Tim's parents and my parents are very different. You know, Tim's parents have always had their own businesses, so they understood to a certain point what Tim and I had to sacrifice, I think. My parents had jobs, so they had to sacrifice in a different way, because, you know, my parents' mum always had 2 jobs, or dad always had 2 jobs, so they're very similar in work ethic, but very different in terms of what they had to sacrifice. We never went with that as kids, and Tim's never went with that as kids, but in different ways. So I think from that point of view, having them to support us has been amazing. Like my sister, Tim, you know, that just having them there for childcare, we could never ever have achieved what we have without our family. And then we've got this really tiny group of friends who've now all got their kids, and they didn't have kids when we first had Fish and Chip Shop of the Year. When we won Fish and Chip Shop of the Year, and sort of that all the way through. And there's so many times we've had to call on friends in Exmouth and go, can you watch the kids? Can you watch the kids? Or they've been dragged in. So we were best man and maid of honour for a guy who used to work for me when he was 16. He's now 36, 20 years ago. And there's so many times he's come to drive for us. He's come and fried when we've been short. He used to work for us until he went to uni. So that group of friends have always been really, really supportive to both of us, like all the time, always been there. I think industry-wise, you've always been a fountain of knowledge for us, for both of us. I think, you know, you've always been there for advice, which has been really, really nice. And just kind of like just little things, like I remember coming, and I'm sure Tim will remember this story. Like we'd been to, I think we'd been to the Chippy Chat Ball. I think we'd been to the Chippy Chat Ball in Peterborough. I think it was in Peterborough, and we'd never been to your shop. And I remember coming in, and I think you were drinking at the time. And we walked in, and you just were like, oh, I'm like, and we were like, do you mind if we pop in for a chat? And you were just so warm and welcoming, and that was really nice, you know, for us. And to have those conversations, and I think Tim referred to a few of them, and you were saying when you had 5 shops, like, you've got to take away the fact that you're never going to be perfectionist in all of them.
Yeah.
You've got to learn to be able to step down a level and step back from that and be happy with being good as opposed to being excellent. And that's what we struggle with. Fred's amazing. Fred is like, I know everyone's like, oh, he's a god and everyone loves him, but he's just incredible.
He's so generous with his time and his knowledge, isn't he?
Absolutely. And he's the one person that, if we're ever struggling in any way, shape or form, like, and we don't know what to do, because when there's 2 of you, it's really hard. Yeah. One of us would be like, you call Fred. I'm like, no, you call him. It's like phoning your dad. No one wants to pick up the phone, but I just know when you do, it's dead easy.
And he always acts like he's sat there waiting for your call.
Yeah.
But he runs a really busy shop.
Yeah.
Really, really busy shop. But, he is generous with his time and his knowledge. And he's a nice guy.
Absolutely. And the Williams family, KFE have always been great to us, haven't they, Tim? They've always been fantastic. If we take away the fact that we've bought a lot of ranges off them, they're just really nice people.
They are nice.
We get on really well with them.
I love them.
They're always really kind. They're always really generous. And, I know if we were up in the area and I picked up the phone to Tan, because we kind of went, got to know Paul really well, but I think Tanya and I are very similar ages. So I think Paul probably saw a lot of in us as he did in Nick and Tan in terms of, conversations and stuff as we grew up. So they've always just been really, really nice to us. Always been really nice. And I think that's my list. I don't know if you've got anyone else to add.
Mention the dodgy
freak. Well, you were on about Stelios. So I was going to mention Stelios, but I didn't want to big him up. Stel's awesome. Yeah. I love Stel. Stel's just a mate. He's from the same area. He was born and raised in Swad, which is just around the corner from Burton. He says it how it is. There's no bullshit. I love, and he always brings cake when he comes to see me. So,
Does he?
Yeah.
Does he?
He doesn't come very often, don't worry.
But he does bring cake. He knows I like cake.
He's in Cyprus.
He doesn't bring me anything. He just brings Kelly cake.
He keeps sending me photos of meat. Like deliciously cooked
Who's
Cypriot,
me? Oh.
Cypriot kebabs. He keeps sending me pictures and
so jealous.
Food porn. Like, it's just, and I miss it. My brother's off to Cyprus next week, and I'm not going. I'm going to Whitby. And yeah,
same.
But he just keeps sending. He sent me some fish, and I was like, no, that's not my bag, mate. Send me some meat.
Send me the meat.
Yeah. Tim, who would you like to mention?
My list is exactly the same as Kelly's, apart from the only person that she missed off, and that's her. I mean, I couldn't do this without her. So, yeah, that's my list.
That's great. Okay, advice for others, and then I'm going to let you get on with the rest of your day. What's left of it? Anyone thinking about entering the competition? There's loads to gain from entering. I mean, it's a health check for your business, right?
Yeah.
It's good for your turnover. What advice would you give to anyone thinking about entering?
Just give it a go. Dip your toe in the water and see what happens, like we did. And yeah, I don't see why so many people are negative about the awards. It's a free award. You're not paying to get a certificate. You're entering it. It is done solely on merit, and I just think everybody should have a go if that's what they want to do, and be yourselves. Remember that if you're lucky enough to get to the end, they all know that your fish and chips are good. When you get to the end, it's all about being an ambassador and being a face of the industry, and you need to try and practice that and come across as best you can.
Kelly, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm all right.
I'll knock her off her feet every now and again.
I'm a very emotional person. I think the advice that I would give people if they were entering the awards is don't forget why you're doing it. Yeah. Your product and your service have to be number one all the time. But don't forget who you are. don't believe your own hype, and you're only as good as the last portion of fish and chips that went out the door. If you stick by those rules, you'll. I think it will just serve you well.
The award's just a
the whole time.
byproduct of being a great business. So
Yeah.
Okay.
don't make a business to win the awards. You know, that's the award. The award should come if you have the business, the great business.
Great. Kelly, I'm going to let him have the last word.
Which is fine, actually. It's what we nicknamed. Something you should all know is when we won Fish and Chip Shop of the Year, we nicknamed him TV Tim because he came into his own.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing. I know the listener will get loads out of this podcast, and it was a real treat for me to be able to have you on and to get you to share your journey. So thank you both so much. Tim, come back safe, please.
Thank you.
I will do.
Good luck on that trip. You'll be fine. I've watched clips of you in training, so I know you're up for it. So, have a good.
It's scary. It's scary. It's the amount of time, the amount of hours you've got to do on your feet is what's scaring me the most. Because my feet are after a while.
Take a fish lifter with you. You'll be all right. Just walk with that in your hand, and you'll know what it's doing. You've already done those miles. You've already done them.
Yeah.
You know, over the years, I'm sure you do it all the time. So, thanks very much, and I'll see you at the next social. I guess maybe a KFE ball or something. Are you coming to Isle of Ely?
I'm not quite sure yet. It's that day.
Yeah,
I've got a wedding the day after, so it just depends on whether we can get up that early.
Well, it'd be lovely to see you if you can make it, and if you can't get into the Poet's House, there's a room at my house. You can...
Oh, thank you, Mark.
No funny business though, not under my roof. Take care. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Speak soon.
Thank you.